Welcome to Frequency, the official AdsWizz Podcast. We speak to podcast creators, audio publishers, advertisers, and industry professionals about everything from the latest creation tech to the world of media advertising and the role digital audio plays. We travel the world to give you a global perspective, asking the questions that you want answers to. You never know where we'll be, so be ready. You might just be the next one behind the mic.
Hello.
Hello.
Emma. So happy to have you here. My name's JB. I look after the marketing at AdsWizz, and we are recording live from the Cannes Lion Festival 2024.
So exciting.
This is our first interview of the week.
I feel so honored.
You should.
I'm the best.
You should.
That's
Premier, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very good. All right. So why don't you go ahead and give me your full name, your title, and what company you work at?
My name is Emma Raz. I'm the director of commercial at Number 8. It means I run the commercial operation, and Number 8 is a data company, a dealer's data company.
Excellent. Give us a little bit more. Dig a little bit deeper
to Number 8?
Yeah.
A bit deeper. Okay. Aurora, yes. So I have my dog next to me. She will make noise at some point or another. Apologize for that. As for how Number 8 and what Number 8 is all about, we're in a world where data is one, more precious even, and second, more scarce. And the way that we think and approach data really has changed, especially over the last few years. And that means that we need to start thinking about data differently. And that's exactly how the company kind of started. And the premise behind the company is, first premise is everything that we do is privacy by design. And it was in the ethos and the core of the company. So how do you get data without violating user privacy? Second ethos, no IDs.
Yeah.
No IDs whatsoever.
Yes.
No IDs.
Yes.
So ID-less is in everything. So everything we say, if you look at our website, solve identity without IDs, it's in everything that you do. Because we are trying to solve this issue. Like, who is the user? What do they care about? Who's the listener? What do they care about? But not through IDs and not through trying to match them to an existing database. And that's really the different approach. It's kind of a live process and a live data.
Love it.
The advantage, it's always up to date. It's always like changing as people.
Right.
So it
and our behaviors.
Our behavior change, people change. So even when we grow older, some of us change our gender, not everyone.
Right.
But people change, we evolve. And this is kind of like the same approach to data. Data evolves with people. So instead of like storing it and matching it against an ID, but we re-identify the data. That is done through different means, but we can dig into that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. I think that sets the premise really nicely. Because we are in Cannes, I would love to talk a little bit more about that. Now, I know this answer, but maybe the people listening don't. Have you been to Cannes before?
Yes, I have.
Excellent. And I know we're on the first day in the first year. I usually like to ask, like, how does this compare to years previous? And I know it may be hard on first day, but have you seen any big differences to prior years?
I mean, well, there's less boats. So, I think the first thing is you have to plan differently.
Yes.
So first, it started earlier where I had to kind of map, so where could we go and eat? Where do we meet? But I mean, I've learned from one year to the other of how to do Cannes, how you do Cannes. I think we all do. Normally it's the same people that come together. So I think it's a very social thing. I don't know if it really changed, but we, as the people coming here, recent generation of canners, recent canners, have been doing it. And I think that we have been doing it better and smarter.
Yeah.
I think it's also like I think Cannes was a bit of a money splash in general. It still is to some degree, but we are also, as we see with advertising, we have to be smarter about the way that we do it. I think that we also trying to do Cannes the same, and be a bit more effective rather than like just throw money and hope that something will stick.
Yes. No, I was walking down the Croisette with, coming back from one of the hotels further down, and I like overlaid dollar signs on all the activations.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's that much, and it's just...
I do the same for film now.
It's insane.
When I watch films, now I'm like, how will it cost to produce this?
How many people do you think were in post-production on that?
I do it the same thing. It's kind of disturbing because you can't really watch. You're like, oh, this is expensive to make. This will be expensive. Yeah.
So outside of price checking everything here, What were you and number 8, hoping to achieve coming into Cannes this year? What are your goals and objectives?
I think in many years is one, sharing knowledge. And the best part about Cannes is that people that come here have the best of the best kind of people coming to Cannes, because normally it's expensive to send. So like you don't send that many people. So knowledge sharing both, that's normally the one event that they get really my finger on the pulse, especially from the demand side of what are the terminologies, what are they saying, what are they caring about. That really helps me understand what do we sell, how do we sell, what does it mean. And of course, for us to share the whole concept of dealers targeting, dealers data, what does it mean, how does it work, how do you do privacy better, smarter, more effectively, so on.
It's like you knew what I was going to ask next. This is the perfect segue into the next question.
No. So mind reader.
Where would you say we are as an industry with solving the loss of traditional audience IDs? Like, would you categorize us as a crawl, a walk, a run?
We're probably more in a crawl in general.
Yeah.
And that's, if we're looking like where we want to be or what we talk about, we're more advanced in our head, I think, than in reality.
Yeah.
In reality,
so true.
In reality, the change is scary.
Right.
That's human nature. So you want to gravitate towards, IDs. I know IDs. They're familiar. They look like, so I'm going to try to solve with something that looks exactly like it. But that's something that looks exactly like it. One, does it even resolve really for the problems that from the original premise of going cookieless, or did we deprecate IDs to replace them with new IDs?
Right.
Was that really the point?
Right.
Second, will they be available if we continue with the signal loss? If we continue with this down this path of signal loss, will this new IDs or different IDs will still be available?
Right.
That is an open question.
Right.
I'm never saying that there's no point or there's no space for the current solution. But I also, if we're really thinking long term and really thinking sustainable solutions for the future, I don't know if we're there yet. If we're looking at where idealist comes in, I think it's more on most of the conversation around contextual, and that we can go into what exactly this contextual even means. But I think we have some way to go. As an industry, we're still probably on a crawl, but there are pockets.
Right.
Some people are walking. Some people are even running. But
nobody's there running with them.
Yeah. Very few people are running with them.
In listening to you and responding to that question, there's two things that pop up. One is when you're kind of talking about, are we going from, our previous IDs to like a newer ID? It almost begs the question is, how good was the previous? The previous IDs were still imperfect in a way, right? And there was pros and cons to them both. So that's just popped in my head. And the other thing that pops in my head when you talked about contextual, I come from TV, and this is like, that is contextual, right? You don't have identifiers. Even if you go back before, like programmatic advertising from the start has always been contextual. So we're almost forced to go back to our roots and what works, right? About behaviors, about content, things like that.
Even audio. If you're looking at audio traditionally data parting. You think about late time shows and like morning shows and different things. And who's the audience listening to those shows? Because in the end of the day, you're trying to talk to people.
Yes.
So it's just thinking of people in a different way. Yeah. And not necessarily identifying a one-to-one basis, but you don't really have to be effective. In fact, if you're looking at traditional IDs, I think recent reports, I don't know if you know, recent reports have shown that IDs were 40% accurate. And like multiple reports have seen it. Because there's multiple reasons why an ID is not always consistent. There's multiple noises along the process. Also, the database you're comparing it against is not necessarily recent. You don't know how recent it is. It's collected in various ways. If anyone comes from research, you have this belief that surveys are gold. Surveys are extremely biased. Very biased. I've worked
regionally. Everywhere that you could possibly imagine.
Just the way that you frame the question will change the answer. I used to do research that was actually the job I did before. I did a lot of research. And you can get different results no matter how you build it, how you build a survey. So if you think that this is a golden standard, or for looking at all of these biases and all of the problems that comes with it, and people also lie, not because they even mean to. Right. We actually did this analysis when we used our core data compared to what people would have to say what they did through the day. And we measured it against our tech. And our tech was far more accurate in terms of measuring, because people forget what they did.
Well, they also tell you what they think they should be telling you. Yeah.
And also like what they want to say. So like, for example, I want to be a jogger, therefore I will say that I work out. Yes, absolutely. But in fact, I don't. I'm a couch potato. Yeah, I'm a couch potato. Both are actual audience. Like, but I mean, so that is where humans we're not that objective. And that's the nature of who we are. So you see all these biases and you have to account for them when you're doing research. And when we do surveys, often that data is just have a lot of mistakes in it in the first place.
No.
Which is why, data is an art.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. And so you've kind of unpacked this a little bit more, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper, specifically to number 8. So with everything that we're talking about, like the transition from, is it ID to ID? Are we looking at contextual? How are we addressing the behaviors of the way that we maybe think we see it versus how it objectively is happening? How is your tech addressing this?
This started to say in the beginning, we're an ID-less solution. So the way that we look at data is there is quite a lot of information that exists in this space, whether within the devices themselves or within the bid request, that while it's not PII necessarily, and it might on its own be quite random, like accelerometer or magnetometer, like we see minus 65 magnetometer, you don't think, oh, I know what this means. No. But in combination and with enough technology, so this is where AI kicks in, and I know it's very popular. It's very popular, and we did AI before AI was so popular, so we did it before. But where AI kind of kicks in is you can interpret those signals and to be able to deliver something much more meaningful. And as I said, the recency of the data, how live the data is, how accurate, we're talking about deterministic data in that sense. That's super powerful. And approaching it without IDs also allows you to walk away from all the original limitations. So limitations of geos, like to only cover one country because that's where you have IDs. Limitations of scale or of IDs, like availability. It's also like if IP will be deprecated, also trying to solve for that. So like whatever signal we see getting lost in the future, we're already got it covered right now. So that's kind of important, at least to us. And then if we're looking at our other product, which is the demographic data.
Yes.
Which I know that we'll dig into, like we'll discuss in more detail.
No,
but
it's okay.
The demographic data, in those cases, we are sometimes quite biased to what we think is important. Like we've worked with partners, and I'm not going to name name just yet. In this context, I'll name drop later. But you would get household data, for example, about the demographic of that user. But the fact that there's someone listening to podcasts from that household, the household has as many people. So actually, the content of that podcast is more telling, or content of the show watched is more telling about who's watching than the household information.
Right, because it's usually the person who signed up for whatever account with their credit card.
Exactly.
Maybe it's not.
Or the household, like, you don't know income. Okay, you are targeting household income, so this household has this income. But whether it's who among this household, and I give my partners and all of the accounts are on my name because I brought the TV. So everything is on my name. Mm-hmm. We don't watch the same thing. Right. We don't listen to the same thing, and we have our own tastes. So you definitely will see that if you're trying to target to me and like he's watching, it's probably not going to land, and vice versa. So we have to think about also the content, and that's exactly what we started exploring both in podcasts and other environments or in-app. Who is actually engaging with this content, leveraging multiple sources of data, and that is readily available in the bid request. The question is one, how do you get enough source data to make it accurate? We're fortunate enough with our SDK penetration to have partners that are able to deliver ground truth data. And then second, how good are your models? That's like the only thing is how if you have better data scientists, if you have better mathematicians, you'll have better models and you can verify them better and do a better job. That's the difference between one company to another.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the data is only as good as your insights or what you're gleaning, right?
Yeah. I mean, so, or creative or effective, there's a bunch of layers there, and we have a lot of discussions internally about data and what can we do that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, I agree.
And just not make any assumptions coming in that this will not be useful, because sometimes we think something is meaningless and it's not. So you have to really explore and think, what's the juice? What can we squeeze?
I mean, and also if we want to do a callback to the surveys, right? Like when we're looking at the data, we're almost thinking and assuming we're going to see what we want to see, but you have to like remove that and be open to like seeing new things. And I think that's where AI and ML can help too, right? But you also need a human element to it as well.
I mean, AI and ML are as good as the people. Like, so AI, I say like a lot, and we just talked about it in a panel recently. I think Cliff said in the panel I did in the podcast show was like, nobody will be replaced by AI. People will be replaced by people using AI.
Right.
And I think that's true. And I think that's regardless, like, yes, of course you need good models, but someone needs to build those models, needs to operate the models, you need to know how to ask good questions. You even see it, your own, I'm assuming most of us has experienced ChatGPT.
Yes.
I'm a big fan.
Yes.
Use it daily for everything.
It's only as good as the setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the questions and how you ask questions and what do you feed it? Because it doesn't run from nothing. Like, it's artificial intelligence, but it's not that one.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. It's almost augmented intelligence, right? I want to dig a little bit deeper on podcast. So looking at the latest IAB ad spend report, podcast been on the rise. I call it the digital darling, right? That it's just been growing for the third consecutive years, but it still remains behind on ads for its listenership and consumption. Podcasts have been on an acceleration, but the ad spend, it has not increased to match that. How do you think podcasts can drive more spend? And is there anything that you would say needs to be done to catch up on those ad dollars?
I think that the main question, like for anything else, where do we see ad dollars being spent, right? And what is currently, how do we make it more standardized? So podcast has been fragmented and a bit difficult to activate, especially on the data side, because there are just limitations and it's less available and it's a bit more difficult. And it's an amazing channel and advertisers are interested in it, but they just don't know, how do I get the right return on my money?
Right.
And I know the top ones, but how do I discover new podcasts? How do I really do this effectively? If we can align and bring podcasts to the same place as other media, in terms of activation, in terms of data availability, in terms of reporting, all of that will make a big stride into making it a much more attractive offering to advertisers. And I think that's where we'll start catching up. Because advertisers really care about eyeballs. Yep. Easy of activation because they have no time or capacity and just like making sure that they have the rights. Like, yes, I want to target this person. And then I can get a report. I did the right thing. So I can prove to my boss, yes, I did the right thing. Or to my customer or to my brand.
Yep. Do you think that most marketers, buyers today are very digitally driven, right? They want to be able to report, they target, they want to report, they want to optimize. But there's things like TV and radio that are still getting ad dollars that don't have that targeting or reporting as much as like a programmatic platform. Do you think that podcasts is more aligned to a medium like TV or more aligned to more like a programmatic platform? Do you think we're trying to like put it in a different category?
That's a really good question. I think that podcasts and CTV are quite similar in many ways because consumption is happening in very similar patterns. But I think it's kind of a hybrid in between. So it's not exactly digital as we've seen digital before, but it's not exactly offline because the consumption and where you consume it and how you do it. So you're able to do some of the things,
right?
But it's not necessarily completely offline and completely like linear. And I think we will also migrate away from that slowly as generation path.
Okay.
So we need to start thinking of how do we maybe bridge those elements and allow ourselves to one, even digital as it exists today needs to evolve because we need to let go. We're not able to do the same thing. So we need to probably build a new ecosystem and let it exist where things are done differently, but achieve the same results, which is effective marketing. But it looks different.
Yes.
It feels different.
It sounds different.
It's like, it does things differently.
Right.
And that's all right because we're still delivering on the same results. And I think that's where podcasts will kind of feed into the same. But I think podcasts and CTV will develop in a very similar path.
I like that prediction.
So hopefully, we'll see it happening. But I think that's where it will go. And
I agree.
Aurora is chilling a bit.
She's chilling. Okay, very good. Let's talk about let's talk about things happening in the world. Can you share with me an example of successful collaborations that you've had with brands that have really kind of driven innovation in digital audio advertising?
I will do my best.
Okay.
So like thinking of a few examples. So like there's quite a few big brands we've worked with recent years, from McDonald's and like, it was McDonald's, and there was like Subway, and there's Virgin Airlines, and there's like, and all of them use our technology, you know, like our core technology, which is innovative to begin with. I think the most interesting part is where 2 layers is like the live moments, which is really effective. And I think that's where, for example, automotive brands have been on the forefront, from Mitsubishi, Toyota, there's a whole list of other ones, which I will not remember all of them.
Yes.
I'm not a car person, unfortunately.
Talk to us about a live moment. What does that mean in your world?
Will do. A live moment, and the way that we differentiate it, is where we're able to detect what am I doing right now. So, for example, that I'm currently sitting inside, socializing, traveling overall, stationary, relaxing, and so on. So, like, all of those are live moments, basically how we think of daytime parting, but instead of just the day, but or the time in the day, but actually the physical environment. If my mornings start later, my morning will shift with me.
Right.
In those sense, we're able to then understand what is relevant for you, the user, right now. Because while behavior, like my cohort, who I am, like pet owner, luxury shopper in general, weeknight socializer, all of those things are true about me, I might not everything is relevant for me at every given moment. Sometimes I'm more receptive to one message versus another because I need it right now. And this is where live moment becomes really effective. It's like telling better stories, knowing that I'm hungry now and telling me about food, because then I will be open to listen. And kind of getting that cut through, not just by repetition, but actually by understanding when is my brain looking for that message. And that's the effectiveness of like live moments. And that's where live moment becomes really powerful. The automotive brands, many of them, government did it as well. That moment is in vehicle. Is knowing that I'm currently in a vehicle, and this is when you want to engage with me to offer me a better driving experience, because I'm probably potentially not very happy with my current one.
And I know that I'm not happy with it when I am in it.
Yes.
Yes.
So then afterwards, I will forget about it. I won't experience it as much. But while I'm in the vehicle and while I'm stuck in traffic or while I'm like not particularly happy about it, then I will be most receptive to that message. That also goes to road safety in many ways,
yes.
But that's because that's in general. So it used to be only from traditional radio, like that will be when people are playing. But as we're transitioning from traditional radio to digital audio, even in vehicle, that how we talk to users and how we talk to consumers have evolved as well. And this is where in vehicle, for example, is really powerful. Same I've seen like for fitness, of like download a fitness podcast and like getting people to engage with the content, is talking to people as they're working out or after they finish working out.
Yes.
It's been really effective.
Not during.
But
after.
I mean, while you work out, sometimes you're not going to press download. Like also like maybe within the same day. That's why we also introduce post moments, for example. It's like, oh yeah, they will just buy the shoes after they finish the run. Then they'll think to buy running shoes. They're not going to necessarily do it as they.
While they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we saw like a lift of 24% in results, and like some examples. They're on the website. You're welcome to look it up.
Yes, please do. Please do. Oh, I actually love the website, by the way.
Thank
As a marketer, the design, the user journey, like very satisfied with my website experience.
Thank you. That is a great job by the team. We launched it. My second year, like my first year into coming to Number 8, it was a journey to build up. I remember changing also the logo. At some point, I said that to people, they're no longer allowed to give any feedback on the logo. They either like it or not. I don't care. Their feedback.
You do. You can give input on messaging, but when it comes to brand, you have to kind of silo it.
At some point, you just like no more. I don't care what you think. Yes, the colors looks like Dunkin' Donut. It makes you feel good. Great.
Good.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
I had a CEO who was colorblind, but it was purples and blues that he had a challenge with. He couldn't tell the difference between it. And we didn't find this out till like way later, and we could not understand why he was not being receptive to something. And then, so anyways, he's no longer involved in the previous CEO decisions on that.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's really difficult. And I don't know, I've been painting my whole life, so colors really are a thing that I get really sensitive about. And I'm very particular, but our head of design did an amazing job with the website. So
yes.
Shout out to Nicola.
Love it.
Yeah. Always have to appreciate. We have an amazing team.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to take us into the next section here. I have a time machine question, which is going back in time, but then I also want to go in the future.
Okay, so let's go back in time
Let's
and then
do it first.
go to the future. So we'll do like Back to the Future or something like.
So Emma, if you had a time machine, what would you tell the media industry 5 years ago?
Unfortunately, I will tell them the same thing I will tell them today.
What does that say about our industry, guys?
So, one, maybe don't put all of your eggs in a single ID basket.
I'm going to make you that T-shirt.
Perfect. Like the more, maybe let's try different approaches and try different things and be a bit more diversified about our portfolio.
Right.
It is best
super reliant on one thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if we're putting all of we're just going to do one thing, one change, we can throw us in a loop, and we are seeing this loop right now. What I'm afraid of that this loop will then happen again in a couple of years, but that's already the future. So 5 years ago, anyone who would have started thinking more towards not just contextual and web, but just thinking more about what else can be done, where else can data go, how do we solve the same problem but very differently? Just stop like we can only solve it through that one-to-one match. I think would have had a lot of advantage today and in the couple of years to come. It's starting. I think our first partner started about 2.5 years ago.
Nice.
So 2.5, yeah, I think. And then Southern Cross and Stereo, which is a joint partner actually. Mm-hmm. And they started thinking about those questions. And I think that's where they see a lot of take right now. Also, as more and more DMPs or things are changing and maybe closing, Salesforce, for example, closed their DMP, and we replaced the targeting that was available.
Right.
So in many ways, it was much easier because they're much more prepared to, okay, if this is no longer possible in other ways or for other reason, because there's no IDs, they will decide to close their business. And we are seeing more of them coming up, but I'm not going to, recent news and everything. Yeah. There's other solutions and there's other ways to do things. And that's where, for them, it was a very easy, we're just going to replace this with this. And when you don't have that option, it looks a lot scarier. Yeah. And I think that's where the freak out right now that we're kind of seeing, which is both freaking out, but not really doing much about it. Which is an interesting, and it's normal to human race, but it's also not great.
Yes. Yeah. Panic with no action.
I mean, look at global warming. Sorry.
It's okay. And join us for our next podcast when Emma and I talk about single-use plastics. I can go down that road.
I as well, and veganism and everything else. I'm not going to go down and what you should worry about in years to come. But I will stick to ideas and advertising.
So your advice is very good. I think not just in the media industry, but it's diversify your solutions, right? In the way that you think about solving a problem, I think is very important. And I don't think it's applicable to it can be applicable to any technology or advancement.
Layer data, have a multi-stack. I think that's advice. It came from economics.
Plan B. Have a plan A and plan B who can work together potentially.
Ideally, you have multi-layers so you can migrate from one to another. You can even I talk about data waterfall. Where you can have your core first data, but you have data waterfall, and not necessarily, this is my waterfall exists of one layer.
There's my programmatic brain completely understands the waterfall approach. Yeah,
exactly. So if we're thinking we already had waterfall, we've had waterfalls all this time. Why not apply them in new ways? And I think that's where I really hope the industry will go to. That's what I would recommend for it to think about. Especially around data.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's kind of a rising tide will make your water fall. We
can find.
work on that one.
We will put another T-shirt.
So tell me, what is the word on the street or the Croisette here at Cannes? Would you say that privacy-friendly advertising has arrived here?
Depends if we're talking about like talking or implementation. The talk is here.
The talk is here?
The talk arrived.
Okay, that's good.
The
That's
talk,
step one.
Yeah, the talk arrived. I think the action is still in the waiting list.
The passes are really expensive to this event. You guys know. Maybe that's why it's not in there yet.
I think in terms of action, I think that it's just people, again, as I said, like, you're afraid of new things. You're afraid of messing up. You're afraid of, like, I think we just got a recent podcast about, like, FOMO, which is, like, the fear of messing up instead of, like, missing out. And that's a bigger factor. And I found it interesting and I think really a good explanation to what we're saying. It's like, I'm going to invest in something new, I'm going to do something new, and it's risky, especially in the current climate of where a lot of people are losing their job, a lot of companies are having cutbacks. Nobody wants to make a mistake. However, the biggest mistake is everyone's doing nothing. We've seen many companies who died by doing nothing.
Do you think a lot of that is people still think they have time because it's just
Google?
things just keep getting pushed back, and
And also, like, if you see GDPR compliance, there's many companies that literally showed up in the last day and we decided, okay, now we have to do something. So there is that, like, I always have more time, I always have, like, less procrastination, and also, like, when nobody wants to make a decision, nobody wants to be responsible for it, it tends to go, like, the time can disappear as easily.
Well, that's why I think your advice comes in hand, and maybe that's a big takeaway, at least for me, in what we could share or advocate for, is you're not making one decision. If you're diversifying, then you're making many decisions, right? So it's having backup plans, it's having,
Just think of it as how you build your stock portfolio. Like, you, like, approach it in the same way. You have some high risk.
Yeah.
You have some your safety net. Like, you basically start breaking that out to, like, some bets that you're making for the future, but you never know. And then this is how you make sure that you get a good return on your investment.
Perfect.
Same way with data.
She charges hourly for investment advice as well. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 more questions to close us out. But I'm going to let you choose. So we can do our fun, like, looking ahead. What do you think will shape the future of ID-less advertising? Or you can do a little bit more of a non-traditional question, which is our version of Kill, Marry, and Love.
I mean, I can do Kill, Marry, and Love.
Okay. So for our version of Kill, Marry, and Love, we'll say this instead. Name 3 things you want to ditch, commit, and embrace.
Ditch the current system.
Okay.
Instead.
I love it.
Just let it go. It's dying a slow and painful death. Just, like, it's okay. Sometimes we need to let things go to make room for new things.
I love that.
That it's okay. Sometimes, like, it pass for a reason. Now, what I would commit to? Users, I will commit to our users, the end user.
I like that.
User privacy. In the end of the day, whatever we're doing, even if in a B2B business, we're doing a service of the consumers. And one of the reasons I joined Embrace is a big part of the ethos of the company. And I really appreciate a company with some sort of a ethos and, like, I don't know, morality behind it. And I want to protect user privacy. I want to make sure that we do what we can. And if we think of them first and then try to solve for the problem, but while solving for their best interest, I think we'll get a much more sustainable solution, and we'll be much more aligned with all of this legislation, all of those changes. We'll stop trying to fight against it and start working with it.
Right.
That's last. And then marry. Well, besides ID-less, because, like, obviously I'm married there. I think, like, to testing and diversifying, and, like, as I started from before, like, if you start with that mindset and from the beginning you start thinking of, like, how do I test different things, not saying, oh, don't do, like, universal IDs, I don't believe in it, do it, but layer your data. Think about how you will waterfall. Think about how you do different things, and then don't be afraid to let yourself test, let yourself fall, let yourself fail.
Yes.
There's a lot of learning from failure.
Agreed.
It's the way that you build.
And it's not failure; it's testing and optimizing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, if we stop being so afraid of it, we might stop like making the biggest mistake, which is never doing it. And I see it repeatedly with people in my personal life. We talk about it a lot. And I'm like, stop failing. Like, it's okay. You'll fail. You'll fall. It will be bad. Great. What's the worst thing? Pick it up. And also when people ask me, I'm proud of it. Like choosing to be a person that is open to fail. Yeah. Because then I can learn from it. And then I let myself be vulnerable. Yeah. And I think that's a big power. And I think that's the same I will say to companies.
Yeah, no, I agree. My husband's a big basketball fan. And there's a phrase in basketball, which is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. So the easiest way to lose a game is not to be playing at all.
Exactly. Very good. Okay. Last question. What is on the horizon for number 8? This is your shameless plug.
Endless, because more targeting, more data, more channels, more cross-learning. So a lot of the things we do is we work across all of the entertainment area. So we work from gaming to audio to streaming to podcast to everything.
Yep.
And a lot of the things that we try to do is take basically cross-learning from here to there, from there to here, and then develop better solutions and better opportunities, especially that's what we're also looking to do.
Yep.
And this is a big part of how we're going to continue forward. Naturally, we'll also continue forward with our core that we've been doing so far.
Yeah.
Because if we're looking at the behavioral targeting, it's actually super cool.
Yeah.
And super exciting. And we're just in a meeting. And when they realize what we actually do, they were like, that's really cool. And I was like, yes, it's really cool.
Thank you. I mean, that's really the best compliment you can get with technology, right?
Exactly. It's really cool. It also works. And it's deterministic, and it's all of those things that you want it to be. And we have products that have already been using it for years now, a couple of year something, and have been really getting really great results. Same as 15% increase in CPMs and so on and so forth.
That's great.
But we're seeing really good results on it. And I would love to see more advertisers and more publishers kind of leverage the power of what better data, good data can do for them. How do you tell better stories?
Right.
And also in my personal life, I love to tell stories. I want to tell better stories.
Right. For the right people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's basically the thing that's on the horizon. So we'll continue in our belief. We'll always be idealists. We'll continue walking our path. Or just do more.
I love it.
More things, new things.
I love it.
Cool things.
More is better. Thank you so much for your time today, Emma. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for yours.